Relationships with narcissists can be extremely frustrating and painful. There's a lot of trying and trying and trying to get through to them, and a lot of waiting and hoping for them to help you meet your most basic needs or to treat you with the most basic amount of respect. And every now and then in these relationships, there are these moments where it feels like we've suddenly had a breakthrough, where the narcissist finally seems to be listening. They finally seem to get it. And this can renew all this hope and cause us to start all over again in this cycle of hoping and wishing and waiting for our most basic needs to be met. In today's video, I want to talk about this and how narcissists give us these little breadcrumbs that feel like huge breakthroughs. And I want to help anyone out there struggling with this to be able to tell the difference between true change and a narcissist's breakthrough. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. To speak a little bit more about what I'm talking about, I think it's first important to explain a little bit about how narcissists operate in relationships. Narcissists don't operate the way, quote, normal people do when it comes to maintaining healthy relationships or building healthy relationships. Normal, quote unquote, people have to be vulnerable, have to communicate, have to be honest, they have to listen, they have to show some reciprocity, some empathy. There's a little bit of give and take. There's a lot of things that go into building a healthy relationship and building the trust required for that. Narcissists are not interested in doing any of that. They'd rather pull teeth. And I think for some of them, they don't even understand these concepts. These are not things that even occur to them. Narcissists have a completely different way of maintaining relationships, and it's all based on facades, acts, lies, fantasies. This is how they hold their relationships together. This is the glue that they use to keep people with them. It's all based on things that just are never really going to come to fruition. And these breakthroughs that they suddenly seem to have every now and then are part of the way of the system that they use to maintain their relationships. It's like they're always kicking this can down the road, and they know that they can take it easy in between, but once they catch back up to that can, they've got to put a little effort in and kick it again. And they just keep doing that over and over again, completely unwilling to ever actually address what's in that can or actually look at it. I don't think it even occurs to some of them. And I don't think that a lot of them are even conscious of the way they do this, because I think it is just such a natural way for them to maintain relationships that it would never even occur to them to do anything else. And what specifically am I talking about? When you're with a narcissist who has habits that hurt you, things that they just refuse to address, refuse to change, that really cause you pain or aren't or making it difficult for you to get your basic needs met. Like maybe they're always forgetting your birthday, or maybe you really love flowers and you've tried to tell them like, wow, I really would love some flowers for Valentine's Day or my birthday or whatever, but they just refuse to do this, or they refuse to cook dinner or buy dinner or take you to the restaurant you want to go to ever, just these little things. But then all of a sudden one day, and it's usually when you're at the end of your rope, they just suddenly remember your birthday, or suddenly they've bought you flowers for the first time in 7 years, or maybe they just suddenly seem to be listening to you for once, or they're actually agreeing with the things you're saying. And this feels so foreign, but also it feels like such a relief, like you've finally gotten somewhere. Finally, these fists that you have banging on a brick wall, something has finally crunched a little. You've finally gotten through this brick wall a little. Something has given, and it just feels so wonderful that you can completely lose track of what has actually happened. To give you another specific example, Just a couple days ago, I watched The Devil Wears Prada for the first time. I'd never seen it before. And for anyone who's never seen it, this is a little bit of a spoiler. I don't think it's a big deal spoiler, but fair warning, a little bit of a spoiler. In The Devil Wears Prada, the character that Anne Hathaway plays, Andy, or Andrea, is the assistant to Meryl Streep's character, Miranda. And on her first day, Andy tells Miranda that her name is Andrea, but I think her exact words were, "Everyone calls me Andy." And Meryl Streep's character, Miranda, immediately starts calling her Emily and just completely has no acknowledgement of what Andy has said to her and just calls her what she wants to call her, won't call her by her real name. And this goes on for quite a good bit of the movie. And then finally, at some point, it feels like it was somewhere in the middle of the movie, Anne Hathaway's character, Andy, does something, I can't remember, does something arbitrary to please Miranda, and just out of the blue, Miranda just starts calling her Andrea. And when I watched the movie for the first time, it didn't even hit me at first. When I first saw this scene where Miranda calls her Andrea, my initial reaction was, oh, finally, she's calling her by her real name. She's showing her a little acknowledgement, a tiny bit of recognition for all the work she's doing and everything she's trying to do to please her, right? Like, oh, wow, a breakthrough, right? But when you really think about it, after the movie was over and I really reflected on it, it's kind of funny that she called her Andrea, but Miranda, or Meryl Streep's character, is not foreign. She's an American. And Anne Hathaway's character told her that her name is Andrea, and everyone calls her Andy. So it's just kind of funny that this, I would say most people agree this is a narcissistic character that Meryl Streep plays, gives her this little breadcrumb of like, okay, I'm going to call you by your name, but doesn't really quite do it. You know, she calls her version of what she thinks Andy's name is, Andrea. And Andy feels really good about that. Like, there's this huge breakthrough. She's finally gotten somewhere. She's finally being appreciated and recognized. When really, even the way that Miranda does this is kind of a slap in the face and kind of a way to say, okay, I'm going to give you this little thing that you've been wanting, but I'm not going to quite do it the way you want. I'm still going to keep control of it, and I'm still going to show you a little bit of disrespect while I do it. And I felt like this example in this movie was a really good example of what I'm talking about in this video. And I feel like this is something narcissists do to keep you on the hook, to keep you filled with hope that you're going to get somewhere. Because this felt like a huge breakthrough. This was something really measurable. Like, oh, she was calling me Emily for who knows how long, and now she's finally sort of calling me by my name. Wow. Maybe sticking around and continuing to put effort into this is going to pay off after a while, because look at this great improvement I just experienced. When really, for the narcissist, this is kind of like just throwing a treat at a dog. It's like, and I'm sorry to be so harsh in my words, but it really is just this way of just showing you this little tiny thing that really doesn't take any effort at all and isn't even up to the level of basic respect, and using that to keep someone strung along like a carrot on a stick. It isn't actually a symbol of any real change or recognition. And I think this is what you'll see when a narcissist has a, quote, breakthrough or epiphany, is to you, it feels like a big deal. It feels like you're really getting somewhere. But when you really step back and look at it, there's always something not quite right with it. It's not really an invitation to actually talk about things that have happened. It's not really vulnerable honesty, transparency. It's just a bone thrown to a dog. It's just a tiny little token of, hey, look, I really do see you. This really is worth all your time and effort. And if you keep trying really hard, I might throw you another bone someday. So it can trick you into feeling like, wow, this person finally sees me. They finally get it. I've finally done something right. Or I know that if I keep trying, like, it really is possible to please this person, but really it's all pure manipulation. That's all this is. It is not a sign of change at all. It is part of the abusive manipulation. And it's also a sign that the narcissist has understood all along what you wanted. When Meryl Streep's character finally calls Andy Andrea, it shows that she knows what her name is. She's known it all along, and she understands that Andy wants to be called by her name. She didn't just forget. And this proves it, because when she finally decides that she's worthy to be called sort of by her name, she just decides, she just does it. And so these little breadcrumbs, you know, they finally remember your birthday, or they finally decide to buy you flowers or whatever. It just shows that they have understood all along that that's what you really, really wanted, but they waited until it would be a more effective form of manipulation before they put the effort in to actually do it. But I also know for a lot of you, this might be really confusing, because how do you know when it really is a sign of change, when it really is a real breakthrough? And let's use this example of The Devil Wears Prada again. If this had been a real sign of change or real respect, Miranda would have said something like, hey, I realize I've been calling you Emily all this time. I'm so sorry. Your name's Andrea or Andy, right? You want to be called Andy? Like, she would first acknowledge the reality instead of kind of skimming over it. She would acknowledge what she's done. She would acknowledge the ways that she's been neglectful or disrespectful or whatever it is. And then she would fully own that, and then also acknowledge the correction. When narcissists have these breakthroughs, there's always this vagueness about it. And like I said, it's not an invitation to start an honest conversation. It's kind of like this little sign you see, and you feel so much hope and so much relief that you don't want to mess things up by actually trying to talk about it or go into detail. And narcissists know that, and they're not going to go into detail about anything. They are going to keep things vague. So they are going to just suddenly start calling you sort of by your right name. But you know, after you've dealt with this person, you know better than to say, actually, my name's not Andrea. It's actually Andy. Could you just call me Andy? You know, like, whoa, don't push it, because this is really delicate. This tiny little sign of respect. Don't ruin it now. So in real change, in a true breakthrough, you should be able to actually say, actually, my name's not Andrea. You should be able to actually talk about the fact that you've been calling me Emily this whole time. But with narcissists, I think that's a big difference. That's one way that you can tell the difference between true change and narcissistic manipulation. Is narcissistic manipulation is like, hey, here's this tiny breadcrumb. Don't ask questions. Don't expect me to acknowledge where this came from. Just be grateful, be quiet, and keep trying. Now, so far, I've been talking a lot about what I would call carrots on a stick, like dangling carrots on a stick, keeping you strung along, keeping you waiting for these little positive reinforcements or these little signs of respect or acknowledgement. But let's talk a little bit about something really similar to this, but apologies or signs of penance. When a narcissist has been causing you a lot of pain and confusion, maybe they've been really cruel to you, maybe they've been yelling at you, insulting you, maybe they've been cheating on you or lying to you or gaslighting you. Maybe you've been in this horrible situation where you know something's not right, you know something's going on, but you can't figure out what it is. And, you know, finally there's some sort of breakthrough, like maybe finally you find evidence that they've been cheating on you or evidence that they've been lying to you about something. If the narcissist feels like it's necessary to apologize in order to keep you on the hook, many of them will. And you might think that this is some kind of breakthrough, like, oh, finally, I don't have to sit and wonder what's going on. I finally know that they've been lying to me about having a job, or they've been cheating on me, or they've been whatever. I finally know this thing that's been happening, and now they're apologizing for it. Wow. Maybe everything can be okay after all. Maybe this is a big breakthrough and we're going to get through this and it's going to be happily ever after. But again, when narcissists do this, we've been waiting and hoping for it for so long that the tiniest little sign of apology or acknowledgement feels like such a wonderful thing. It feels like the whole world's going to change for the better now. But when you step back and look at what it is in reality, it's really not much of anything. So when a narcissist apologizes, they will be vague. Like I said, they're not going to really acknowledge what they've done. They're going to say things like, I'm sorry this has been so difficult for you. Or I'm sorry that we've been having such a hard time. Or they might, if they cheated on you, maybe they even might go so far as to say something like, I know I haven't treated you the way you deserve. Or I know that I haven't been as faithful as I should. They might even get that close, right? But they're never going to come right out and admit specifically to what they've done and how they've hurt you. They keep it as vague as they possibly can because they're not sorry. They don't want to acknowledge it, and they want you to stop talking about it. They want it just to go away like it never happened. There's no real opportunity to actually talk about what they've done. I had an experience a long, long time ago with a very narcissistic person that I was in a relationship with. And it's a really long, complicated story that I don't have time to get into, but I was in a situation it was a no-win situation. It was damned if I do, damned if I don't. No matter what I did, I was going to be the bad guy. I was going to lose a lot. I was going to be harshly, severely judged, smeared. There were a lot of very painful decisions that I just did not know how to make. It was a really terrible situation, and the narcissist I was with had kind of orchestrated everything to make himself the victim of whatever I did. And this was really difficult for me. I was in an enormous amount of emotional pain. I was extremely confused. I was being really hard on myself. I was scared. It was terrible. And I was also blaming myself for this whole thing, thinking that it was all my fault because that's what I had been manipulated into believing. And one day, this narcissistic person I was with just kind of out of the blue said to me something, I don't remember his exact words, but it was something like, I realize this must be really, really difficult for you. I was just thinking about it and I realized this must be really, really awful for you, really painful for you. And, now all these years later, I look back and I still don't quite understand why he said that to me. But in the moment that he said it, there was part of me that felt like a little bit of relief, like, oh, okay, he does get it a little bit. He does see that I am trying. I don't want to hurt anybody. He does see that this is hard for me, that this is causing me pain. So there was this little bit of relief, but then on the other hand, it also felt like a little bit of a trap. Like, oh, what's he trying to get me to say? What's he going to try to get me to say that he's going to use against me later? Like this is a trick. Like, why is he saying this? What's up with this? And of course, nothing changed. The things that he did to perpetuate this situation didn't get better. There was just like this little moment where he vaguely acknowledged the pain that I was in without going into any detail about the things he had done to cause these things. And I don't know, I can only guess. I don't know why he did this, but I can guess that it might have been a way to manipulate me into maybe feeling more like the bad guy. Like, oh, okay, this guy really does understand my pain. He does have empathy. Wow, what a great guy. I really am a piece of crap. I don't know, that might have been part of it. And also just to confuse me more and to just keep me on the hook more. Feeling like, okay, maybe there's a way for him to recognize what I'm going through. Maybe if I just keep trying really hard, we can work this out. I don't know. But I think the point I want to make is that this seemed to be some sort of breakthrough, but really it wasn't an invitation to talk openly about this situation. It wasn't honest. It wasn't transparent. It was confusing. It was vague. And it was meant to make me feel like I owed him something in return for this tiny token of recognition that he had given me. And really, in hindsight, I think this shows me that he fully understood how much pain and confusion I was in, and really didn't care too much to do anything to change it. He wanted me to stay there in this state because it gave him the control over me and my emotions. And to get back to a situation where a narcissist might be apologizing or might be wanting to make it appear as though they're apologizing, I think the best case scenario that you might run into is when they are saying things like, I know, when you're going on about all the things they've done. They might say, I know, I'm sorry, I know, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I know, I'm sorry. Some of you may have heard that a lot, and you might in that moment really feel like, oh, they're listening to me. Oh, they're not turning it around on me. They're not gaslighting me. They're accepting what I'm saying. They're listening. But really, I know and I'm sorry are just ways of saying like, okay, I understand at this point, I can't keep turning things around on you or I'm going to lose control of you. I have to sort of make you feel like I'm acknowledging what's going on, but I'm not going to really get into anything. I don't want to actually talk about it. So I'm going to just let you sit and tell me all these things that you feel, all these frustrations you have, and I'm just going to say, I know, I'm sorry, I know, I'm sorry. And maybe I'm not even listening to what you're saying, right? Because this is all just part of more manipulation. And I know I'm sorry, I know I'm sorry is also a way to kind of dismiss you and kind of, I think it's a way to say, okay, yeah, I know I'm sorry, now shut up. I don't want to talk about it anymore. What do you want from me? I said I'm sorry. And just to add to that, I'm sorry a little bit, when a narcissist or somebody who has been abusive towards you says, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's really worth saying this to them, but I think it's worth it for you to reflect on the question of what would happen if you asked them, what are you sorry for? What exactly did you do that you're sorry for? Because if you ask them that question, you're going to get a lot of nonsense in return because they're not going to specifically own up to what they've actually done. You're going to be going around it, but never really pinpointing what they've done to hurt you and what it is they're actually apologizing for. The reason that these breakthroughs are so powerful, such a powerful form of manipulation to keep you on the hook, is because these are things that you want to see. You are so filled with this desperate, toxic hope that maybe someday all your efforts are going to pay off, that this person's finally going to understand what they've been doing to hurt you, and they're going to care about that they're finally going to start listening and meeting your most basic needs. You're so filled with this hope. And these breakthroughs are these tiny little signs that maybe there is hope. Maybe this person really gets it. And if I keep trying, it just keeps you chasing this thing that you so desperately want. Because it just makes you feel like there's hope when there really isn't. When this is all part of this manipulation, it's all an illusion and it's all part of something to keep you chasing this fantasy that's never going to be real. You project onto the narcissist this breakthrough, this epiphany that you imagine they're having when they give you these little breadcrumbs, because that's what you want to see so badly. And they know this, whether they're fully conscious or not of the way they're manipulating you. They know this is a very effective way to keep people on the hook, to give them just tiny breadcrumbs of something that looks kind of like what they're so desperately wanting to see. And this is how they maintain control of you. This is how they control your emotions and just keep you there on that hook, hoping and wanting and wishing, waiting. They're always going to withhold what you really need, that full acknowledgement or that full admission of what they've done. You get stuck in this place where you feel like, in your mind at least, you're constantly saying to them, just admit it, just admit it, just admit what you've done. And they almost do. They almost do. And that keeps you wanting, chasing that, needing that acknowledgement, needing that admission from them, and not being able to accept that they are fully conscious of the way they're doing this, of the way that they're withholding the truth from you. At least this is a choice they're making, and they are never going to choose anything different. They have no reason to be open, honest, and vulnerable with you because they are not interested in building a healthy relationship. They are only interested in maintaining control. And to go back to the example from Devil Wears Prada, where Miranda calls Andy Andrea. If on day one, Andy had gone into that office and said, "Hi, my name's Andrea, but everyone calls me Andy." If from that first moment, Miranda had said, "Oh, okay, Andrea," I think that would have been a little obnoxious. Like, okay, so you're going to call me Andrea. I guess that's close enough. Fine, right? It wouldn't have felt good. It would have felt like, okay, I guess if you want to say it that way, you're the boss. But give a little time, give a little manipulation, give a little desperate hoping, wanting, and waiting, and then call her Andrea. Now that same act feels like a great gesture, like a major breakthrough, like a wonderful relief. And Andy isn't even thinking about the fact that, you know, she's not saying my name the right way. So a narcissist can make you feel like a tiny little turd is a golden nugget after they've been withholding things from you for so long. Just this tiny little stale breadcrumb feels like a banquet. When you step back and look at what they've actually said or what's actually happened that feels like such a major breakthrough, really, it might just be not even a sign of basic respect, but just something a little closer to it. And your standards are so low from how much you've been beaten down by this person that you're willing, or you've gotten to the point where you've been manipulated into feeling like you need to accept this, and you need to be really happy and grateful about it too. It is one thing to be with somebody who has done things that hurt you, or maybe they've neglected you, and there's things that you need to work on with them, but they're willing to have open dialogues with you about it. You're able to talk to them. You're able to communicate, even though they're not perfect and they've hurt you in certain ways. Like, they're not pretending that things are something they're not. They're not conditioning you to accept turdlets or stale breadcrumbs and pretend they're feasts, right? In a relationship worth working on, you're able to talk and be transparent and both acknowledge reality. You have a shared reality. When you're with someone who is blaming you for the things they're doing, who is making you feel grateful for half-assed signs of respect, who is confusing you and gaslighting you and making you feel like everything's your fault, making you feel confused, like you don't know which way is up, you don't understand what's going on, you don't know what they're doing, what they're saying, what they mean, you can't ask for clarity, you can't ask for transparency, and when they give you these tiny little gestures of apologies or acknowledgement or whatever, you can't dig into those things, you can't really have honest conversations, and you're filled with all of this dread and confusion and pain. That is not a relationship you can salvage. That's not a relationship that you can wait for something to happen, some breakthrough, and suddenly make it healthy, make it a healthy relationship. If you are living in that kind of place, it's not going to get better, because that is how that person operates. In my opinion, anyone that would make you doubt your sanity and doubt your own reality or your perception of reality and keep you with this desperate, toxic hope of just receiving some half-assed sign of respect, that, in my opinion, a relationship like that is not worth one more minute. It will never give you what you really need. And if you are someone who is desperately hoping and waiting for this breakthrough to happen, you can stop waiting, because it's already happened. The narcissist has known what they're doing the whole time. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.